On the 5th day after I was discharged from the hospital, my husband stopped me at the curb. My mom's getting older. She needs her peace and quiet. Go stay with your parents. Let your mom help you out for, say, 3 years, then you can come back. I didn't make a scene. I just nodded and said, okay. 3 years later, he came eagerly to pick us up. The moment he stepped through the door and saw the scene inside, he froze. 5 days after my C-section, the incision felt like a rusty saw was being dragged back and forth across my skin. I clutched my stomach, a cold sweat breaking out along my spine with every tiny step. My son, a small bundle weighing just over 7.5 pounds, was fast asleep in my arms, his weight pressing down on my still healing wound. Amanda, honey, slow down. Be careful you don't tear your stitches, my mom said, her face etched with worry as she juggled the hospital bags. She steadied me with a gentle hand. That, Kevin, I swear. His wife is being discharged from the hospital. It's a huge deal, and he's nowhere to be found. I had texted him, but he hadn't replied. I'd called, but he hadn't answered. I bit my lip, forcing a pale smile. It's okay, Mom. He's just swamped at work. You know how it is with those big corporate jobs. Endless projects. Back then, I was still naive enough to believe he was actually busy. The car pulled into our familiar condo complex, and a sigh of relief escaped me. Finally home. I missed my bed, missed the nursery we had spent months decorating. All I wanted was to lie down, to feel like the hell of the past few days was finally over. But just as the car stopped in front of the building, before I could even open the door, a figure appeared, blocking my way. It was Kevin. He was wearing a gray sweatsuit, hands shoved in his pockets. His hair wasn't even combed. He didn't look busy. He looked like he was bored out of his mind. My mom rolled down the window, her voice sharp with annoyance. Kevin, what are you doing? Get over here and help. Amanda's in a lot of pain. Take the baby upstairs. Kevin didn't move. He stood about 3 feet from the car, his gaze evasive, not even glancing at the tightly wrapped bundle in my arms. Mom, Amanda. Wait, don't get out just yet. His voice was dry. His eyes flickered past my mother and landed on my tired, pale face. My heart skipped a beat. A cold, snake-like premonition slithered down my spine. I gritted my teeth against the pain and tried to keep my voice steady. What's wrong? Did something happen at the apartment? Kevin pressed his lips together, as if steeling himself. He straightened up. Mandy, I've been thinking about this for the last couple of days. You know my mom's heart isn't great. She's been complaining that she's afraid of the baby, crying. People with anxiety, they can't handle noise. What if the baby fusses in the middle of the night and her heart condition acts up? Who's going to be responsible for that? I was stunned. I had been in the hospital for 5 days after major surgery. In those 5 days, my so-called mother-in-law, Carol, hadn't shown her face once. Her excuse was that she couldn't stand the smell of antiseptic. It was bad for her heart. Fine. I let it go. Now, I was home, literally at the front door, and he was saying this to me. I stared at him, my voice turning to ice. So you want me to take our 5-day-old son and sleep on the street? See, there you go again, being dramatic, Kevin sighed, putting on an expression that screamed, why can't you be more reasonable? What I'm saying is, you should go stay with your parents for a while. Your mom's retired anyway. She's got the time, and she's more experienced with babies. The insulation in our building sucks. If my mom gets sick, this whole family will fall apart, won't it? My own mother, sitting beside me, looked ready to explode. She was about to throw the car door open and give him a piece of her mind, but I grabbed her hand and held it tight. I took a deep breath. The sharp pain from my incision was strangely clarifying. I looked Kevin dead in the eye. Kevin, are you serious right now? Is this your idea? Or your mother's? Or is this something you two cooked up together? Kevin, apparently feeling he was on solid ground, spoke faster. Mandy, you have to be understanding. Family comes first. My mom worked her whole life to raise me, and we can't repay her by letting her live in a noisy house in her old age. Besides, what's so bad about staying with your parents? That's your own mother. She'll take better care of you during your recovery than mine would. Just stay there until the kid is. Hmm, let's say 3. Once he's old enough to understand things, stops crying all the time, I'll come get you both. 3 years old? 3 years. I looked at the man I had shared a bed with for the past 2 years, and suddenly felt like I was looking at a complete stranger. He didn't just want to shed the burden of a newborn. He wanted to package up the financial pressure, the responsibility of raising a child, the mental toll, and dump it all on my parents, who were in their late 50s. Then, 3 years later, when the child was older and easier to manage, he would waltz back in, pick the sweet, ready-made fruit, and have the child call him Dad and Carol Grandma. The sheer audacity of his plan was so loud, I could hear it ringing in my ears. A gust of wind blew past. The baby in my arms stirred, as if sensing something, and let out a soft coo. In that instant, my aching heart went numb. I didn't cry. I didn't throw a tantrum like he probably expected. I knew I was too weak to even stand properly. Arguing with him would only risk tearing my stitches open, and it would accomplish nothing except making me feel more pathetic. Quietly, I slipped my hand into my coat pocket and pressed the record button on my phone. "Kevin, I'm going to ask you one last time," I said, my voice eerily calm as I stared at him. "Because your mother is afraid of noise, you are refusing to let me and our son come home. You are demanding that I go to my parents' house and have them raise our child until he is 3. And during this time, I'm not allowed to come back. Is that correct?" Kevin was clearly taken aback by my composure. He hesitated for a second, then nodded impatiently. "Yes, that's what I mean. And don't feel bad about it. This is all for the sake of family harmony. Don't worry, I'll figure out a way to send you some money for expenses." Figure out a way to send money. What a wonderfully non-committal phrase. "Okay." I nodded, stopping the recording. A faint, cold smile even touched my lips. "What?" Kevin thought he'd misheard. I said, "Okay." I turned to my mother in the driver's seat, whose hands were trembling with rage. "Mom, let's go. We're going home." "Amanda." My mother looked at me in disbelief. "You're just going to—" "Drive, Mom," I said, my voice firm, my gaze unwavering. "This isn't my home. This is Kevin and his mother's house. We're going to our home." Kevin visibly relaxed, a smug, triumphant grin spreading across his face. The "I knew you'd see it my way" look. He took a step back to let us pass, even giving a phony little wave. "Okay then, Mandy. You take it easy. I'll come visit once you're feeling better. But work is just crazy right now. So it might be a little while." The car window slowly rolled up, shutting out his hypocritical face. As the car turned around, I watched him in the rearview mirror. He was humming a cheerful tune as he turned and walked into the building. He was probably thinking, "That idiot was so easy to get rid of. No diapers to change, no postpartum wife to care for." And he could even spin it to his relatives that he was a filial son, sending his wife and child away to protect his ailing mother's health. What he didn't know was that these 3 years weren't just a trap he had set for me. They were the stay of execution I had just granted him. The law in our state allowed for a no-fault divorce after a 1-year period of separation. He wanted to kick me out for 3 years? Fine. I would use that time to show him what it meant to invite a demon in but be unable to send it away. I would show him what it meant to lose his wife and child, to have his home and life utterly shattered. "Mom, don't cry anymore," I said, wiping the tears from her face. I looked down at my sleeping son. "Before we go to the courthouse, we need to get through this recovery. This battle has only just begun." The atmosphere in the car was suffocating. My mom drove, wiping away tears that fell onto the steering wheel. My heart ached watching her. "I told you from the beginning that Kevin was no good," she sobbed. "And that Carol is even worse. She didn't contribute a single penny for the down payment on the condo, but she insisted his name be on the deed. And now this. Kicking you and her own grandson out onto the street the day you get home from the hospital. Is she even human? Animals are better than that." She choked back a sob. "Amanda, it's our fault. Your father and I are useless. We should have stopped you from marrying him." "Mom, this isn't your fault," I said, leaning back against the seat. The physical pain had subsided into a dull ache, replaced by a mind working in overdrive. "It's my fault for being blind, for thinking a fish eye was a pearl. But don't worry, I'm not going to swallow this insult. The car entered the older, established neighborhood where my parents lived. It wasn't as new or flashy as Kevin's condo complex, but as we passed the familiar gates, saw old neighbors walking their dogs, and smelled the aroma of home-cooked meals wafting from open windows, my heart, which had been floating in a void, finally landed. The moment the car stopped, my dad rushed out in his slippers. He had gotten a call earlier and had taken the day off work to make chicken soup for my arrival. "There's my grandson," he beamed, reaching for the car door. But when he saw it was just me and my mom, his expression changed instantly. "Where's Kevin? Where is that punk?" My mom got out, her eyes red and swollen. She didn't say a word, just slammed the trunk shut. My dad was a sharp man. Seeing her reaction and my pale face, his anger flared. "What happened? Did that bastard do something to you?" His loud voice drew the attention of a few neighbors passing by. I struggled out of the car, holding my son. "Dad," I said weakly, "let's go inside first. It's too windy out here for the baby." My dad swallowed his anger and carefully took the baby from my arms, his movements as gentle as if he were handling a priceless treasure. He shielded his grandson from the wind and helped me inside. "Let's go. We'll talk inside." Walking into the house, the warmth hit me. A pot of chicken soup was simmering on the dining table, steam rising from it. Soft cushions were laid out on the sofa. A brand new bassinet stood in the corner, a handmade mobile my dad had crafted hanging above it. This was home. I had just sat down and taken a sip of warm water when my mother recounted the entire incident from Kevin's building, not leaving out a single detail. Crash! My dad hurled the teacup in his hand against the floor, shattering it. The absolute nerve. How dare he? He was shaking with rage. He turned and stormed into the kitchen. "I'm getting a knife. I'm going to kill that son of a bitch. What kind of person is he?" When he was proposing, he was all smiles and promises. Now he treats my daughter like what? A baby machine to be used and thrown away? "Frank, what are you doing?" my mom cried, rushing to stop him. "Dad!" I called out, the word taking all my strength and sending a sharp pain through my incision. I gasped and curled up on the sofa, clutching my abdomen. "Amanda!" My dad panicked, dropping the butcher knife and rushing to my side. "What is it? Are you in pain?" "I won't go. I won't go." "Don't get worked up." Seeing my father, a man in his late 50s, red-faced with anger on my behalf but still having to comfort me, my tears finally fell. But I quickly wiped them away. This was no time for crying. I took out my phone and played the recording for my parents. Kevin's cold, dismissive, and self-righteous voice filled the living room. "Just stay there until the kid is 3. Once he's old enough to understand things. I'll come get you both." My dad listened, his fists clenched so tight his knuckles cracked. "Mom, Dad, listen to me," I said, turning off the recording. My eyes were so calm. They didn't belong to a new mother who had just been deeply humiliated. Kevin is legally ignorant, and he's an idiot. He thinks kicking me out saves him money and effort while giving him leverage over me. But what he doesn't know is that he's just handed me all the ammunition I need. "What do you mean?" my dad asked, confused. "The law in our state allows for a no-fault divorce after 1 year of continuous separation," I said, enunciating every word. "He wants me to stay here for 3 years? Fine, I'll do it. For this year, I will collect every piece of evidence of him abandoning his wife and child, every proof that he's not fulfilling his financial duty of child support. I will raise our son to know only his mother, not him as a father. 1 year from now, I will file for divorce." My gaze drifted to the warm bassinet, and when that day comes, I will make sure he walks away with nothing. I will make sure he never gets to see his son again for the rest of his life. My parents looked at each other, shock in their eyes. They probably never expected their normally quiet and gentle daughter to be capable of such ruthless determination. "But," my mom hesitated, "are you just going to endure this for a year? That Carol will surely go around telling everyone terrible things about you, that you're not a good daughter-in-law, that you're mooching off your parents. Let them talk," I said with a cold smile. "Reputation only matters to people who care. I don't care about them." They can talk until they're blue in the face. It won't hurt me. Besides, Mom, I'm not going to be idle. I took my parents' hands. I know it will be hard on you both to help me with the baby for this year, but I won't be useless. I have a lot of contacts from my old job in e-commerce management. Even though I've quit, I can take on freelance projects, maybe start my own social media brand. I'm going to make money. I'm going to make sure our family lives better than before. I want Kevin to see with his own eyes that without him, Amanda Hayes won't just survive, she will thrive. Oh, you silly girl, what are you talking about? My mother pulled me into a hug, her tears flowing again. Your father and I can support you forever. We don't need a dime from that despicable family. As long as you and the baby are healthy, that's all that matters. My dad, his eyes also red, nodded. That's right. Amanda's right. We won't make a scene. We'll let the law do the talking. I support you. For this next year, I'll work my old bones to the ground to take care of my grandson, and we'll make that Kevin regret it for the rest of his life. That night, I slept soundly. Though my incisions still ached and the road ahead was long, I knew I was no longer fighting alone. I had the strongest support system in the world, and I had a son I had to protect. As for Kevin, in my heart, he was already a dead man. The postpartum recovery period was easier than I had imagined. There were no passive-aggressive remarks from a mother-in-law, no pointing fingers from Kevin. Living with my parents was like heaven. My mother cooked a different nutritious meal for me every day. My father gleefully washed diapers and burped his grandson. To ensure I got enough sleep, they even moved the bassinet into their room, only bringing the baby to me for feedings. But I didn't let myself get lost in comfort. When the baby slept, I was on my phone, researching divorce laws and consulting with lawyers online. I found a highly rated divorce attorney and paid for an hour-long consultation. Miss Hayes, your situation is very advantageous. The lawyer's professional voice came through the phone. Even though he only verbally told you to leave, the fact that you have it on tape and are establishing a long-term physical separation is powerful evidence, especially if, during this period, the father fails to pay child support or exercise any visitation rights. When you file for divorce after a year, the probability of the court granting the divorce and awarding you sole custody is extremely high. So, what do I need to do? I asked. Maintain your separate residence. Do not engage in any form of marital relations, the lawyer instructed. Save all chat histories and any financial records. Also, keep documents proving that you and your family were the only ones present for the child's doctor's appointments and vaccinations. This is all concrete proof of parental abandonment. I understand. After the call, I looked at the sunlight streaming through the window. An invisible countdown clock, in my mind, officially started. 365 days and counting. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Kevin. Hey honey, how are you settling in at your mom's? We have a huge project at work. I'm totally buried. Don't be mad at me, okay? I'm doing all this to build a better future for our little family. I almost laughed out loud. Building a better future? His idea of building was probably browsing the internet at his desk and going out for beers with his buddies after work. I didn't reply. I just muted his contact. A moment later, a notification bubble appeared on my social media. I clicked on it. It was a new post from Kevin. A picture of him eating a sad-looking takeout container at his office desk. The caption was dripping with faux martyrdom. For my mom's health, I've had to make the painful decision to let my wife and son stay with her parents for a while. These lonely nights eating takeout are tough, but for the sake of family harmony, what's a little sacrifice for a man to make? Family first, man of the house. The comments quickly rolled in. His clueless cousin, Kevin, you're such a good son, and your wife. Seriously, how could she let you eat takeout alone? She should really appreciate you more. My drama queen mother-in-law, Carol. Oh, son, it's so hard on you. It's all my fault. This weak heart of mine has caused so much trouble. Your wife is so lucky she gets to go to her parents' house and be pampered. Kevin's reply to Carol. Mom, don't say that. As long as you're healthy, I can handle a little hardship. Watching this saccharine mother-son drama play out, I felt my stomach turn. Twisting the narrative, playing the victim. They were the ones who kicked me out. But now I was the one being pampered, while he was the noble, suffering son. The old me would have been furious, probably jumping into the comments to argue or calling him to demand an explanation. But the new me just watched calmly, as if observing a clumsy circus act. They wanted to provoke me, to get me to come back and fight so they could label me as shrewish and ungrateful. Dream on. I simply tapped the like button on Kevin's post. Then, I made my own post. No picture, just a single sentence. A woman is soft, but a mother is strong. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for giving me a safe harbor. From this day forward, for my son, I will shine. I blocked Kevin and his entire family from seeing it. This post was for my former colleagues, my clients, and my potential business partners. I was letting them know Amanda Hayes was back in the game. After posting, I tossed my phone aside and turned to my dad, who was happily entertaining his grandson. Dad, I began, didn't you say you have an old buddy from the Marines who works at the county records office? My dad paused, looking up. Yeah, old Jim. Why? A cold glint appeared in my eye. I was wondering, if a father fails to fulfill his financial obligations for an extended period, is it possible for the child to take the mother's last name? My dad's hand froze, the rattle he was holding suspended in midair. He looked at me, and the shock in his eyes slowly turned to admiration. It's tricky, but not impossible, he said, putting the rattle down, his tone growing serious. With a good reason and the right approach, it might just work. Amanda, have you really thought this through? Changing his name is a declaration of war on the whole family. They started it, I said, looking at my sleeping son in his bassinet. His face was a perfect copy of mine, with none of the features of that cold-hearted man. Why should my son carry the name of someone like that? All right, my dad slapped his thigh. Leave it to me. Once you're fully recovered, I'll take you to talk to Jim. If there's even a sliver of a chance, we're going for it. Outside, the sun was setting, casting a warm orange glow across the room. In this small home filled with love, a counterattack for dignity and the future was quietly beginning. Kevin, you can enjoy your so-called freedom. By the time you wake up, you'll find that the family you were so proud of is nothing but an empty shell. When my son was 3 months old, my maternity leave ended. I was supposed to return to my old company, but the commute was an hour and a half each way. That meant not only could I not pump and bring milk home, but the time I got to spend with my son each day would be pathetically short. I didn't want to miss him growing up, and I didn't want to put the entire burden on my aging parents. So I made a bold decision. I quit and started my own freelance e-commerce consulting business from home. I still had my network of old clients. When a few of them heard I was freelancing, they started sending projects my way. The income was unstable at first, but it offered exactly what I needed: flexible hours and, with enough hard work, a much higher earning potential. That afternoon, I was editing photos on my computer when my son woke up, fussing for a bottle. My dad immediately put down his newspaper, expertly mixed a bottle of formula, and started feeding him. Amanda, you just focus on your work, he mumbled. This little guy is just hungry. He'll be happy as a clam once he's full. Seeing my father's graying hair and his careful, gentle movements, a lump formed in my throat. Just then, my phone on the desk buzzed. The name Kevin flashed on the screen. I frowned. In the 3 months since I'd moved in with my parents, the number of times he had initiated contact could be counted on one hand. Aside from an occasional half-hearted text, he had practically vanished. I took a deep breath, composed myself, and answered the video call. Kevin's slightly puffy face appeared on the screen. The background was our old apartment. The sofa was piled with dirty laundry, and the coffee table was littered with takeout boxes. What are you doing? He asked, a cigarette dangling from his lips, his eyes listless. Took you long enough to answer. Working, I said flatly, discreetly taking a screenshot. Smoking in the house with a baby another black mark against him. Working? Kevin scoffed. Didn't you quit your job? What work could you possibly have? Don't tell me you got roped into some pyramid scheme. I didn't bother to explain. What do you want? Kevin took a drag from his cigarette and blew out a cloud of smoke. Listen, I need you to transfer me your salary. Or you can just Venmo it. The mortgage payment is due this month, and I'm a little short. I was so stunned, I could hardly believe what I was hearing. Kevin, are you still asleep? I'm living at my parents' house. My parents are the ones taking care of our son. I'm the one buying the formula and diapers. You haven't contributed a single cent of child support, and now you're asking me for money to pay the mortgage? Hey, I don't like your tone, Kevin said, stubbing out his cigarette with a frown. What do you mean I haven't paid child support? You're staying at your mom's, eating their food, using their electricity. You're not spending any money. Besides, your name is on the mortgage too. If I don't pay it, are you going to let the bank foreclose? You're the mother of my child. What's wrong with contributing a little? Mooching. The word was like a needle, stabbing me in the heart. My parents were helping me out of love. In Kevin's mouth, it became something I was entitled to. Kevin, listen carefully, I said, picking up a calculator. I started punching in numbers as I spoke. Our son is 3 months old. He drinks Similac Pro Advance. 1 can is $40. He goes through 4 cans a month. That's $160. He uses Pampers Swaddlers, about 6 a day, which is roughly $80 a month. Then there's the probiotics, vitamin D drops, vaccinations, and clothes. In the last 3 months, I've spent nearly $2,000 on him alone. And that's not even counting my parents' time, the groceries, or the utility bills. Kevin's face on the screen stiffened. He cut me off impatiently. All right. You don't have to be so meticulous. Every family raises a kid like that. I've never heard of a wife being so naggy about it. And I've never heard of a man kicking his wife and newborn out of the house, I retorted coldly. Kevin was speechless, his embarrassment turning to anger. Amanda, don't push it. I did that for my mother's health. Besides, I bought that condo before we got married. Your name is on it, sure, but my parents paid the down payment. What's the big deal about asking you to cover a little bit of the mortgage? Don't you have any responsibility as a wife? Oh, so you do remember it was a premarital asset. I laughed. And that your parents paid the down payment? Then go ask them for the money. Why are you asking me? Kevin was so angry he was pointing at the screen. Why have you become so materialistic? All you talk about is money. I really misjudged you. That's right. I am materialistic, I said, my voice calm, unfazed by his attempts to guilt-trip me. If you don't want to pay, that's fine too. From now on, I will keep a detailed record of every single expense for our son. Whenever you remember you're a father, you can pay me back for your half. As for the mortgage, the loan is in your name. It has nothing to do with me. If you can't afford it, let the bank take the condo. I'm not living there anyway. Amanda, are you crazy? Do you want me to come over there and raise hell? Go ahead, I said, gesturing towards the door. My dad is in the living room right now. He's got a wrench in his hand, fixing the baby's stroller. If you want to test the strength of an old Marine, be my guest. Kevin clearly remembered my dad's military past. He flinched, his bravado instantly deflating. Fine. You're tough. Amanda, you just wait. Let's see how well you survive without me. Click. He ended the call. I stared at the black screen, feeling nothing. I opened my chat history, saved the recording of the call, and compiled a list of my son's expenses for the month. I sent it directly to the family group chat that consisted of only 3 people, me, Kevin, and Carol. After sending it, I tagged both of them. At Kevin at Carol, child rearing expenses for this month total $656. As Kevin has stated, he is unable to pay child support and has demanded I cover the mortgage payments. I am making this public here. If you have any objections, please express them with a transaction receipt. The group was dead silent. A long while later, Carol left the group. Kevin followed suit shortly after. Looking at the group chat with me as the sole remaining member, I couldn't help but laugh. So this was their precious pride. The moment money was involved, so-called family ties and filial piety crumbled to dust. I turned to look at my son, still drinking his bottle, and whispered, "Sweetheart, you see? Some people are just paper tigers. As long as you're strong enough, they can't hurt you at all." That night, I received my first major project since quitting my job. It was from a mother and baby brand I had worked with before. They had heard I'd had a baby and specifically sought me out to promote their new product line. The brand director messaged me, "Amanda, I saw your post. Your journey is authentic and inspiring. That's the kind of strength we're looking for." Looking at the notification that the deposit had hit my bank account, I pressed my phone to my chest and let out a long breath. The amount was more than Kevin's entire annual salary. My son's formula for the first year was now covered, but that wasn't enough. I needed to save money, a lot of it. For the difficult battle ahead, I had to fill my war chest. "Kevin, you can hug your pathetic salary and your petty schemes and rot in your own filth." The days of our separation felt like two vines that had once been intertwined, then were abruptly severed, each now growing wildly in opposite directions. Kevin thought he had found freedom. I had blocked him, but I kept a burner account to follow some of our mutual friends. Through them, I could see just how free he was. No crying baby, no wife nagging him about expenses. He was living like a bachelor again. On a Friday night, he posted a photo from a karaoke bar, the table littered with empty beer bottles. The caption read, "Brothers for life, not going home till we're drunk." In the corner of the photo, you could see the edge of a young woman's skirt and a hand with glittery nails resting on his shoulder. I zoomed in. I recognized that nail polish. It belonged to the new intern at his office, a girl named Tiffany. Before he'd kicked me out, he used to mention her, saying how young and vibrant she was, how she got it, unlike me, who had become a different, sullen person after having a baby. I had foolishly thought it was just casual complaining. Now I saw the seeds had been planted long ago. I calmly took a screenshot and saved it to a folder I'd labeled trash. Then I put my phone down and changed into a smart business casual outfit. I had a meeting tonight, too. Not for drinks, but for business. I was meeting Daniel Chen, the COO of a major tech firm, at a chic cafe downtown. Daniel was a big former client, known for being incredibly discerning. I had revised the proposal for our new partnership 5 times before it finally met his standards. When I walked into the cafe, Daniel was already there. He wore a perfectly tailored dark blue shirt, sleeves rolled up to reveal a sophisticated watch. He was focused on some documents. This was the difference. At the same age, Kevin was at a karaoke bar with an intern, bragging with his friends, while Daniel was reviewing a multi-million-dollar project. "Daniel, sorry to keep you waiting," I said with a smile. He looked up, and for a moment, a flicker of surprise crossed his eyes. "Amanda." He stood and politely pulled out a chair for me. "You look much better than I expected. I heard you just came off maternity leave. I was half expecting you to show up covered in spit up." I smiled and handed him the proposal. "The spit up is for my son. The professionalism is for my clients. Shall we get started?" For the next 2 hours, we were completely in sync. Daniel was brilliant. He not only pointed out a few flaws in my plan, but also offered constructive, insightful suggestions. The intellectual sparring was exhilarating. After we finished with business, Daniel closed the folder. "Amanda, a personal question, if you don't mind," he said, his gaze analytical. "Go ahead." "I saw your phone light up a few times. Family, I assume? It's getting late. Does your husband have a problem with you working so late?" I paused, then smiled faintly. "I'm a single mother now," I said. I didn't say separated. I went straight for the definitive term. My parents are helping me with my son. As for his father, you could say he's an absentee parent. Daniel was clearly not expecting such a direct answer. He paused, then raised his coffee cup in a small toast, a new level of respect in his eyes. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have asked. But that just makes me admire you more. Raising a child alone and still maintaining this level of professional quality. Amanda, you're really something. Life forces you to be," I said, taking a sip of coffee. The bitter taste gave way to a sweet aftertaste. "If I don't work hard, how will I afford diapers?" That night, Daniel insisted on driving me home. I had him drop me off at the entrance to my parents' neighborhood. "Thank you, Daniel. Don't mention it," he said, rolling down the window. The night breeze tousled his hair, making him look less like a sharp executive and more approachable. "Amanda, If you ever run into any trouble, just ask, work-related or otherwise. My background is in law. If you need any legal help, I'm here. My heart stirred. His background is in law. Thanks, Daniel. I'll keep that in mind, I said, half joking. I might just need it one day. As his car disappeared into the night, I turned and walked into the quiet neighborhood. I pulled out my phone and saw the notification. A $5,000 deposit from Daniel's company, the advance for the project. It was the largest single payment I had received in months. I stopped by a market and bought a case of imported cherries and the best calcium supplements for my parents. When I got home, the lights were still on. My dad was pacing the living room, rocking my son, who was a little fussy. My mom was in the kitchen, cooking a late-night snack. "You're back," my dad whispered, putting a finger to his lips. "Shh, I just got him to sleep." I tiptoed in, looking at my sleeping son, and then at my father's tired but loving face. In that moment, Kevin's idea of freedom seemed so cheap and pathetic. What he had was a fleeting, artificial high. What I had, despite the exhaustion and responsibility, was real love, the confidence that came from my own hard work, and the deep satisfaction of watching my son grow up healthy. His freedom was a downward spiral. Mine was a climb to the top. That night, I sent a message to the burner account I knew Kevin used. Of course, I knew he wouldn't see it. I was sending it to myself. "Kevin, enjoy your bachelor life, because very soon you're going to realize you didn't just lose a wife, you lost everything." Time flew by, and before I knew it, the end of the year was approaching. It was the first holiday season since Kevin and I had separated. For over half a year, he had been a ghost, except for the occasional sappy missing my son post on Facebook. In reality, he hadn't sent so much as a single can of formula. I was happy for the peace and quiet. But some people just can't stand to see you doing well. A few days before Thanksgiving, I got a call from Carol. Seeing mother-in-law on the screen, I smirked. I was busy trying on a new holiday outfit I'd bought for my son, a tiny, adorable red flannel shirt and jeans that made his fair skin glow. I put the call on speaker. "Amanda," Carol's voice was as condescending as ever. "The holidays are almost here. Why haven't you brought my grandson home yet? Do I, the mother-in-law, have to personally invite you?" I adjusted my son's collar and said nonchalantly, "Oh, Carol, did you forget? It was your son who told me to stay with my parents for 3 years for the sake of your heart. It hasn't even been a year. I wouldn't dare come back and upset you." Carol was momentarily speechless, clearly furious, but she quickly suppressed her anger. "All right, stop with the smart mouth. It's Thanksgiving. What kind of daughter-in-law stays at her parents' place? People will talk. Get here tomorrow. The whole family is coming over, and they're all waiting to see their nephew." So it was about saving face. Her relatives loved to compare and compete. If her daughter-in-law and grandson were a no-show for the holidays, she would lose face. "Oh, and another thing," Carol added. "When you come early. I need help making the stuffing and pies. I can't do it all myself. And you know how it is in our family. The women eat in the kitchen after the men are done with the game. So you can just help me out there." The women eat in the kitchen. It was 2025, and she was still living in the 1950s. I almost laughed. The old Amanda might have swallowed her pride and gone back for the sake of family harmony, slaving away in a greasy kitchen only to eat leftovers. But I was no longer a doormat. "Carol," I said, my voice light. "That's unfortunate. I was just about to tell you. We won't be coming for Thanksgiving this year." "What did you say?" Carol's voice shot up an octave. "You're not coming? You are a part of this family. If you're not coming here, where are you going?" "My parents, my son, and I have already booked our flights to Hawaii," I said, glancing at the tickets on my desk. "An early morning flight. A 5-star, ocean view resort. Thanksgiving dinner was a seafood buffet. You know, my parents have worked so hard helping me with the baby all year. I need to show them my appreciation. As for the stuffing and pies, you and Kevin can handle it." "Amanda, how dare you?" Carol was practically screaming. "Are you using my son's money to take your own family on a lavish vacation? Have you no shame?" "Let me correct you," I said coldly. "This is money I earned myself. Your son's pathetic salary can barely cover his own bar tabs. Where would he get the money for me to spend? And another thing, if you continue to shriek at me, I'll be sure to forward this recording to the family group chat so everyone can hear what your missing my grandson sounds like. I hung up and blocked her number. The world was blessedly quiet. The next morning, the four of us flew to Hawaii. On Thanksgiving night, while Kevin was facing a table of cold food, his mother's thunderous expression and the whispered gossip of his relatives. Hey, where's his wife and kid? Did she leave him? I was sitting on the balcony of a 5-star hotel in Maui, enjoying the ocean breeze and eating lobster. I deliberately posted a photo. A lavish spread of seafood against a backdrop of fireworks over the ocean. My parents were beaming, holding my son, who was gleefully clutching a giant lobster claw, his face smeared with butter. The caption: Happy Thanksgiving. This year, I'm staying away from people and things that drain me. Family, warmth, and gratitude. Number, blessed. I didn't block anyone. Soon, my phone was blowing up with calls from Kevin. I silenced it and tossed it in my bag. Amanda, a toast, my dad said, raising his wine glass, his face flushed with happiness. You've been through a lot this year, but you've also been incredibly strong. I'm so proud of you. Cheers. The clinking of glasses was the most beautiful music I had ever heard. I later heard that when Carol saw my post, her heart condition flared up on the spot. She dramatically collapsed onto the sofa, scaring all the relatives. Kevin rushed her to the hospital, where doctors ran a battery of tests and concluded she was perfectly fine, just suffering from a case of extreme anger. The ER visit cost them a few $1,000s, and they spent Thanksgiving night in the hospital. Kevin's gossipy cousin texted me to tell me the story and call me ungrateful. I replied with a single word, "Oh." Then I Venmo'd her $200 with the message, "Buy her a fruit basket from me. Tell her I'm sorry I can't be there, and I hope she feels better soon." The cousin was so enraged she blocked me. Standing on the hotel balcony, listening to the distant crash of the waves, I felt a deep, satisfying thrill of revenge. But it wasn't enough. Carol, Kevin, this was just the beginning. The cold shoulders, the ridicule, the dismissal you subjected me to, I will return it all, with interest. The first year of separation was over. It was time to start reeling in the net. The second year flew by. Without me to take care of things, Kevin's life deteriorated. I heard from old neighbors that his apartment was a mess. Carol's so-called neat freak tendencies had magically disappeared now that she had no one to clean up after her. Dishes with mold grew in the sink, and the living room floor was a sea of takeout containers and beer bottles. Kevin couldn't stand it and looked into hiring a cleaner, but the cost a few $100s a month for basic service was more than he could afford after his mortgage and other expenses. So, he remembered me. The free, all-purpose maid he had kicked out. It was a weekend. I was preparing for a sales live stream at home. By now, I had become a moderately successful mommy blogger and influencer. My following wasn't huge, but it was highly engaged, and my live streams generated a respectable income. The doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. It was Kevin. He was holding 2 cheap-looking fruit baskets, a sheepish, shifty look on his face. I didn't open the door, just spoke through the intercom. "What do you want?" "Mandy," he said, forcing a sycophantic smile. "I came to see our son. Look, it's been over a year. You should be over it by now, right? Mom's health hasn't been great. She keeps asking about the baby." I opened the inner wooden door, but left the security gate locked. "Asking about the baby?" I scoffed. Over a year ago, when he was sick with a fever in the hospital, did she ask then? When he learned to say, "Mama," did she ask then? Or is it that now there's no one to do the housework, you suddenly remember you have a wife and son? He'd been hit where it hurt. His face flushed. "Look, I was wrong, okay? But I was busy with work. We're husband and wife. We can fight and make up. Just pack your things and come home with me. I promise, I won't make you do all the housework. We can hire a part-time cleaner, how about that? You said it yourself, Kevin." 3 years, I said, pulling out my phone and playing the recording from that day. "Wait until the kid is 3. I'll come get you both." His confident, righteous tone from the recording was a stark contrast to his pathetic groveling now. "You're not a man of your word." Kevin's face hardened. "Amanda, don't push me. I've humbled myself to come and get you. What more do you want? Do you want me to get on my knees and beg?" "I don't need that," I said flatly. "You were the one who burned the bridge. Don't blame me for not wanting to cross back. I'm staying here for the full term." "You?" He looked like he was about to kick the gate, but then he saw the security camera blinking above the door and stopped himself. "Fine, Amanda. You win. Let's see how long you can last without the support of a family." He stormed off, leaving the cheap fruit baskets behind. Watching him go, I just felt a sense of ridicule. He still thought I was the helpless housewife who couldn't survive without him. He had no idea. That night, my live stream was packed. I didn't mention my personal life at all, but I knew, on the other side of the screen, a burner account was watching. It was Kevin. Seeing me, confident and radiant, seeing my sales numbers climb, the feeling in his gut must have been worse than swallowing a fly. This was exactly the effect I wanted. Let him see what he'd lost, but never be able to get it back. Let him drown in regret. When my son was 1.5 years old, something major happened. The plan to change his name, which my dad and I had been working on, finally came to fruition. Legally, changing a minor's surname requires the consent of both parents. However, if one parent can prove long-term abandonment or failure to provide support, there are legal avenues. My dad went to his old Marine buddy, Jim, who worked at the county records office. "Jim, it's a mess," my dad said, looking crestfallen as he sat in Jim's office. "That family is unbelievable. The kid's been alive for 1.5 years, and the father hasn't given a dime, hasn't even seen him. My daughter is raising him all by herself. The boy is starting preschool soon, and his legal name is still tied to that deadbeat. How are we supposed to explain that to him when he's older?" Jim was indignant. "There are still fathers like that these days? What a disgrace." "So, about the name change," my dad probed. Jim frowned. "Normally, you'd both have to be here to sign." But he looked at the evidence I had compiled, the returned money transfers, the bank statements showing 0 child support payments, with proof of long-term parental abandonment. While you can't do a full legal name change without a court order, you can file a petition to have him also known as by your daughter's surname. It gets added to his official record. Then, after the divorce is finalized, you can make it his primary legal name, also known as is good enough. My eyes lit up. As long as it was on his official documents, I could use Leo Hayes for school registration and everything else. Whether Kevin liked it or not was his problem. That afternoon, with Jim's help, I successfully added Leo Hayes as an official alias to my son's birth certificate and records. Looking at the name, my hands trembled with emotion. This was my son. He was a Hayes, my parents' pride and joy, the life I had risked everything for. He should have no connection to that heartless man. To celebrate, I took the whole family for a professional portrait session. My son wore a dapper little suit, and my parents and I wore coordinating outfits. We were all beaming. I posted one of the photos with a simple, 3-word caption: Leo Hayes. My phone immediately exploded. A call from Kevin came in almost instantly. "Amanda, are you insane?" he roared. "Leo Hayes, who gave you permission to change my son's name? He is a part of my family line. He carries my name. It's just an alias." "Why are you so worked up?" I replied calmly. "Besides, in the last 1.5 years, have you acted like a father for a single day? Have you paid a single dollar? If you don't raise him, why should he carry your name?" "That's a separate issue," he sputtered. "He's my son. This is about my legacy. Are you trying to erase me from his life? Change it back, or I'll sue you." "Go ahead and sue," I said with a laugh. "I'd love to go to court and discuss the 1.5 years of back child support you owe me. See you in court." Kevin went silent. He knew he didn't have a legal leg to stand on. He knew if it went to court, he would not only lose, but also be on the hook for a massive amount of back pay. "Fine, Amanda. You're ruthless," he snarled through gritted teeth. "You just wait. I'll get you back for this, sooner or later." After hanging up, I looked at the family portrait, a wave of satisfaction washing over me. "Get me back?" Fine. I was ready to settle all our debts, and I was going to make sure he paid back every cent, with interest. That night, I held the sleeping Leo in my arms. "Sweetheart," I whispered, "from now on, your name is Leo Hayes. You are Mommy's pride and joy, and Grandma and Grandpa's treasure. We don't carry the name of bad people. We have our own name and our own life." Outside, the moon was bright. I knew this was just the first step. The real battle was still to come. But I was ready. As my career took off, my social circle began to change. I started attending industry events and networking parties. Daniel Chen's presence in my life became more frequent. At first, it was purely professional. He appreciated my work ethic, and I admired his business acumen. But gradually, that appreciation seemed to evolve. One day, I was at a new family-friendly restaurant, creating content for a review. Daniel happened to be working nearby, and stopped by. I was in the ball pit with Leo, both of us laughing and covered in sweat. "Need a hand?" a gentle voice asked. I looked up to see Daniel standing by the edge of the pit, holding 2 bottles of water, smiling down at us. He had shed his usual suit jacket and was wearing a simple white t-shirt, which made him look younger. "Daniel," I said, surprised, "what are you doing here?" "Was just in the neighborhood." He handed me a water and then crouched down, clapping his hands for my son. "Come on, Leo, let's have Uncle Daniel hold you." Leo was usually shy around strangers, but he immediately toddled over and into Daniel's arms. Daniel lifted him up with a practiced ease that astonished me. "You know how to hold a kid?" I asked. "Years of practice with my nieces and nephews," he laughed, his eyes full of affection. "This little guy is heavy. You're feeding him well." In that moment, with the sunlight streaming through the window and illuminating them, they looked strangely perfect together. A passerby would have assumed they were a loving father and son. Just then, a familiar figure walked past the window, an old, gossipy neighbor from Kevin's building. Her eyes went wide when she saw us, and she quickly snapped a photo with her phone. I saw her, but I didn't move. Why should I? Kevin and I had been separated for over a year. Our relationship was irretrievably broken. I wasn't doing anything wrong. Besides, if that photo got back to Kevin, it might not be a bad thing. That evening, Daniel invited us to dinner. He peeled shrimp for Leo and put food on my plate, taking care of us with a quiet attentiveness. "Amanda," he said suddenly, putting down his chopsticks and looking at me seriously. "I know this might be sudden, but I want you to know. I'm serious about you. Not just because of your talent, but because of who you are." I froze, my fork hovering in midair. "I know your situation," he continued. "You're not divorced yet, and you have a son, but I'm willing to wait. Wait until you've settled everything. Wait until you feel ready to start again. I just want you to know, you don't have to do it all alone." His words were sincere and steady. No flowery promises, just a simple, solid commitment. My heart ached with a mixture of sorrow and warmth. "Daniel," I whispered, my voice choked with emotion. "Thank you." "You don't have to answer now," he said, pouring me a glass of warm water. "Like I said, I can wait. Just focus on what you need to do. Don't let bad people and bad situations ruin your peace." In that moment, I understood. You have to leave the wrong person to meet the right one. Kevin was a pit of quicksand, always trying to drag me down. Daniel was a ray of light, illuminating my path forward. After dinner, Daniel drove us home. At the curb, instead of just dropping us off, he got out, helped me get the stroller out of the trunk, and watched us walk to the building entrance. The light in our apartment came on before his car finally drove away. Standing at the window, watching his tail lights disappear, I made a decision. I had to speed up the divorce. For my son, for my parents, and for the man who was willing to wait for me. Just then, my phone rang. It was Kevin. Without thinking, I declined the call. I didn't need to guess. The gossipy neighbor had surely sent him the photo. He was probably furious, ready to accuse me of cheating. Too bad. He no longer had the right. The moment he kicked me out of our home, he forfeited any say in my life. The game was now in my hands. Kevin, your good days are numbered. If the old Kevin was merely cold and selfish, the current Kevin had devolved into a cornered, rabid dog, The reason was simple. He was broke. Without my salary to supplement the household income, his meager pay was stretched thin between the mortgage, his attempts to maintain a certain lifestyle, and supporting his mother's phantom illnesses. To make matters worse, with no one to rein him in, he had gotten into online gambling. What started as small bets had spiraled into a desperate attempt to win back his losses, and now he was drowning in debt. One afternoon, I was finalizing a product list with Daniel when my phone started buzzing incessantly. It was Kevin. I sighed, answered, and hit record. "Amanda, you get down here and sign these papers right now," he barked, his voice frayed with the desperation of a man at the end of his rope. "I'm selling the condo. The real estate agent says we both need to sign before they can list it. Get down here now." Selling the condo. I paused, then laughed internally. His parents may have paid the down payment, but I had contributed to the mortgage payments for 2 years, paid for all the renovations, and my name was on the deed. He wanted to sell it to pay off his gambling debts? Dream on. "Kevin, have you forgotten?" I said coolly. "That condo is half mine. Did you get my permission to sell it? My parents bought that place." "I'll sell it if I want to," he roared. "Don't you dare try to take my property after mooching off your parents for over a year. Just get down here and sign. After I pay off my debts, we can split whatever is left." "Debts?" I seized on the word. "How much do you owe?" There was a moment of silence, then a defensive bluster. "None of your damn business. Just get here. Or I swear I'll go to your office and make a scene. I'll go to your parents' house. Let's see how you keep up your precious live streaming business then. Be my guest," I said calmly. But a reminder, the building I live in now has top-notch security. Someone on their blacklist, like you, won't even get past the front gate. I hung up and immediately notified my building's security, and I warned my parents to be extra careful. But I had underestimated Kevin's capacity for shamelessness. The next evening, just as I finished a live stream, I got a call from the head of security. "Miss Hayes? There's a man here named Kevin, causing a disturbance at the main gate. He says he's your husband and is demanding to be let in. He's very agitated, and he's holding up a sign. A crowd is gathering." I took a deep breath and grabbed my coat. "I'm on my way down." As I approached the gate, I could see a crowd gathered outside the tall, wrought iron fence. Kevin, in a wrinkled shirt and with greasy hair, was holding a piece of cardboard with sloppy, angry letters scrawled on it. "Amanda Hayes, gold digger, cheater, abandoned her family, no justice." He was waving the sign and sobbing to the onlookers. "Please, everyone, be my judge. My wife looks down on me because I'm not rich. After she had our son, she ran off with another man. Now she's trying to steal my house and leave me homeless. Please, help me." The crowd murmured. People were pointing, some pulling out their phones to record. I stood on the other side of the gate, looking at the spectacle. I felt no anger, only a profound sense of pity and disgust. This was the man I once loved. Now, he was just a pathetic clown, selling his last shred of dignity for a performance. "Kevin," I said, my voice amplified by my phone's speaker, clear and calm, cutting through his crocodile tears. He whipped his head around, a vicious glint in his eyes. "Amanda, you finally decided to show your face, you." "Shut up," I interrupted. I stood behind the security guard, looking down at him from the elevated entryway. The setting sun cast a golden glow on me. I was wearing a chic, tailored pantsuit, my makeup immaculate, my expression sharp. He stood in the shadows, looking like a drowned rat. The class difference between us was palpable. "Kevin, you look pathetic," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. "You say I'm stealing your property. Fine. See you in court. Whatever the judge decides is my share. I'll take. Not a penny more. Not a penny less. You say I abandoned you. Who kicked me out of the house? I still have the recording. Should I play it for everyone?" His face paled. He remembered. As for cheating, I let out a cold laugh. "You should wipe your own mouth before you accuse others. How's that intern Tiffany doing? Did she stop hanging around now that you're broke?" How did you know?" he stammered, his eyes wide with panic. "If you don't want people to know, don't do it." I raised my phone and took a picture of him. Kevin, what you're doing right now constitutes public disturbance and defamation. I've already called the police. They'll be here in 5 minutes. You can either spend a few nights in a holding cell, or you can get lost, right now. The mention of the police was his kryptonite. As a contract worker for a large corporation, a criminal record would mean instant termination. Amanda, you're evil. You just wait. I will sell that condo. I'll find a way to deal with you, he spat, throwing the sign down and scurrying away through the crowd. The show was over. The crowd dispersed. Miss Hayes, the security guard said, should we let him in if he comes back? No, I said, adjusting my collar and turning to leave. If you see him again, call the police immediately. Back in my apartment, I knew Kevin had reached the end of his rope. When a man has lost his money, his so-called dignity, pride, and family values all become a joke. All I had to do was wait and watch him self-destruct. The 1-year separation period required by law was nearly complete. Just 2 more months. In this final stretch, Kevin seemed to panic. He must have consulted a lawyer and realized that once the year was up, I could legally file for divorce. He would not only lose half the condo's equity, but would almost certainly lose custody of our son. So he changed his strategy. No more threats, no more public scenes. He launched a nauseatingly sweet charm offensive. Every morning, a good morning, honey text. Every afternoon, a Venmo payment for $20 with the note, for lunch, don't work too hard. Every evening, a trip down memory lane. Remember that little Italian place we used to love? We should take Leo there sometime. These belated gestures of affection only made me sick. 2 years ago, I might have been moved. Now, I saw it for the pathetic, transparent act it was. I didn't block him. These messages were more evidence. I just muted him and took screenshots. When his texts went unanswered, he escalated. One morning, I was in the studio for a major brand's sponsored live stream. Daniel was there, helping to manage things. Suddenly, the studio door burst open. Kevin strode in, holding a cheap bouquet of roses, wearing an ill-fitting suit. Amanda! I'm here to take you home, he bellowed, shocking the thousands of viewers watching live. Before I could react, he rushed in front of the camera and dropped to his knees with a thud. Mandy, I was wrong, he sobbed, tears and snot running down his face. I've been a jerk for the past year. I shouldn't have sent you away, but I did it for my mom. Her health is better now. Please, come home. A child needs his father. The comments section exploded. Some viewers, unaware of the history, started to fall for it. A man who can admit he's wrong is a good man. Forgive him. Think of the child. I looked down at the sniveling man on the floor and sneered internally. He was trying to use public pressure to leverage my professional reputation to force me to reconcile. He had miscalculated. I gave Daniel a subtle nod. He immediately cut the live stream feed. The screen went black, but the drama in the studio was far from over. Kevin, I said, setting down the product I was holding. Are you done with your performance? He froze, then tried to continue his act. Mandy, I'm being sincere. Sincere? I pulled out my phone and showed him a screenshot of a flirty text exchange he'd had with Tiffany just 2 days prior. Is this your sincerity? Begging me to come home 1 minute and telling an intern you miss her the next? Kevin's face went white. He lunged for the phone, but Daniel stepped between us, grabbing his wrist in an iron grip. Mr. Johnson, please have some self-respect, Daniel said, his voice quiet but firm. This is a place of business. If you don't leave now, we will have security escort you out. Kevin, intimidated by Daniel and the staring staff, finally deflated, but he had one last parting shot. Amanda, you'll regret this. I'm his father. You're robbing my son of his heritage. You'll pay for this. Pay for what? I laughed. You're the one who abandoned your family. You're the one who cheated. If there's any karma, it's coming for you. Security, I called. 2 guards entered and hauled Kevin out like a sack of garbage. I turned the live stream back on and bowed to the camera. I apologized to everyone for that interruption. That was my soon-to-be ex-husband. Due to a long history of emotional abuse and abandonment, we are in the process of a divorce. What you just witnessed is exactly why I have to leave him. As a woman and a mother, I will never yield to this kind of moral blackmail. The live stream comments, which had been wavering, flooded with support. You go, girl. Divorce him. My sales that day broke all previous records. Kevin's last-ditch effort had not only failed, but had backfired spectacularly, turning into a launchpad for my career. The final 2 months passed in a calm before the storm. I ignored all of Kevin's attempts at contact and focused on organizing my evidence. I bought a fireproof safe and meticulously filed everything. Folder 1, the original recording. His words, "Wait until the kid is 3, were the primary evidence of abandonment. Folder 2, proof of separation. 2 years of receipts, delivery addresses, and GPS data, all showing 2 separate lives in 2 separate locations. Folder 3, lack of financial support, bank statements showing 0 child support payments from him, juxtaposed with receipts for over $30,000 in child-related expenses that I had paid for. Folder 4, evidence of infidelity. Screenshots of his social media, location data linking him with Tiffany, and even credit card statements Daniel had helped me obtain, showing gifts he had bought her. Folder 5, the final nail in the coffin, Carol's medical records. Besides a few minor colds, her so-called serious heart condition was non-existent. I met with my lawyer, a sharp woman named Miss Davis. "Miss Hayes," she said, a satisfied smile on her face. "This is the most airtight divorce case I've ever seen. We're not just going to win. We're going to annihilate him. Just a few more days," she advised, a cunning glint in her eye. "Let him think the 3 years he decreed are almost up. Let him come to you, full of hope, ready to reclaim his family. And then, at his highest point, we serve him the papers. It's a psychological tactic. It will shatter his defenses." I laughed. "Miss Davis, you're ruthless. To deal with a man like that," she replied. "You have to be." Stepping out of her office, I looked up at the bright blue sky. The countdown clock in my head had finally reached 0. "Kevin, you said you'd come get me in 3 years. Fine. I'm waiting." The day finally arrived. It had been exactly 2.5 years since he'd kicked me out. He couldn't even wait the full 3 years he had proclaimed. At 10 a.m. sharp, the doorbell rang. It wasn't a polite chime, but an insistent, banging fist, accompanied by Carol's shrill voice. "Amanda, it's your mother-in-law. Open the door." I was sitting on a plush leather sofa in my living room, sipping a freshly brewed coffee, looking out at the city skyline from the floor-to-ceiling windows of my new luxury penthouse. Half a year ago, I had bought this place outright with my earnings. Daniel was on the floor, patiently building a Lego castle with a now 2.5-year-old Leo. The morning sun bathed them in a warm, golden light. "They're here," I said, setting down my cup. I smoothed my silk lounge set and walked to the door, turning on the video intercom. On the screen, Kevin was wearing a slightly yellowed white shirt, his receding hairline slicked back with too much gel. Carol wore a gaudy floral jacket, clutching a large, empty tote bag, presumably to carry home spoils. "Who is it?" I asked, feigning ignorance. "Amanda, stop playing dumb," Kevin shouted. "It's me. I'm here to take you home. Mom came too. We're giving you a lot of face here." I smiled and buzzed them in. When they stepped out of the elevator and saw the opulent hallway and the glimpse of the lavish interior through my open door, they both froze. This is your parents' place," Kevin stammered, his eyes wide. "No, they live in that old neighborhood. How did they?" "Come in," I said, not bothering to offer them slippers for their muddy shoes. They shuffled in like peasants in a palace, their eyes darting around at the designer furniture and crystal chandelier. The shock in their eyes quickly morphed into greed. My, Amanda, did you rent this place?" Carol said, her lip curled. "Spending so much money just to keep up appearances. Tesk. Well, since you have money to waste on rent, you should just move out and give me that money for my grandson's formula." Kevin puffed out his chest, trying to regain his authority. "That's right. Mandy, I know you were trying to prove a point. I get it. Since you're so good at making money now, you can take over the mortgage payments. I'll use my salary to buy medicine for Mom. Now, pack your things. We're going home." He started to walk towards the bedroom, as if he owned the place. "Stop right there," A cool voice cut through the air. Daniel, who had had his back to them, stood up and turned around. He wore a simple cashmere sweater and gold-rimmed glasses, exuding an aura of quiet power that stopped Kevin in his tracks. Who the hell are you?" Kevin asked, his eyes darting between Daniel and the small child clinging to his leg. "I'm the man of this house," Daniel said with a faint smile, putting a protective arm around my shoulder. "And I'm Amanda's fiancé." "What?" Kevin and Carol shrieked in unison. "Fiancé? Amanda, you're not even divorced. This is adultery." Kevin trembled with rage, pointing a shaking finger at me. "I knew it. I knew you were sleeping around. You slut." Smack. A sharp, ringing slap echoed through the room. It wasn't me. It was Daniel. "Watch your mouth," Daniel said, his voice dangerously low. "This is my home. I will not have you disrespecting my fiancé. Say one more word, and I will have you thrown out." Physically, Kevin, stunned and holding his red cheek, looked at the taller, stronger Daniel and shrank back. You hit my son," Carol shrieked, preparing to collapse to the floor in her signature move. "Help! Murder! The adulterers are beating people." "Oh, stop the theatrics, Carol," I said, my voice weary with disgust. I walked to the coffee table, picked up a thick manila folder, and slammed it down in front of Kevin. "Kevin, open your damn eyes and look at this." He shakily picked it up. On the cover, in bold letters, were the words, "Petition for dissolution of marriage." "I was never coming back to you," I said, enunciating every word. "I let you come up here today for one reason, to let you know that I'll see you in court." You're serious?" Kevin's face went ashen as he read the petition. "You want a divorce? You want to take my condo? And you're suing me for emotional distress?" "That's not all," I said, gesturing to the child hiding behind Daniel. "The most important part. Our son is mine. You walk away with nothing." The air crackled with tension. Kevin stared at the papers, then at me, then at Daniel. Finally, his eyes landed on the small figure peeking out from behind Daniel's legs. It was his son, Leo, dressed in a cute set of overalls, clutched Daniel's pants, his big, dark eyes filled not with recognition, but with the wariness of a child looking at a stranger. That look broke Kevin more than any insult could. "Son, it's me. It's Daddy," Kevin croaked, forcing a grotesque smile and squatting down, reaching out his hands. "Leo, come to Daddy. I'm here to take you home." Leo flinched and buried his face in Daniel's leg. In a small, clear voice, he said, "Daddy, I'm scared." He had said Daddy, but he had said it to Daniel. Kevin looked as if he'd been struck by lightning. He froze, his face a kaleidoscope of shock, rage, and utter despair. What did you call him?" he stammered, pointing a trembling finger at Daniel. "I'm your father. I'm your real father. Who is this man?" "Amanda, did you teach him to call another man Daddy? Have you no shame? What right do you have to be his father?" I said coldly, scooping my frightened son into my arms. "You kicked him out of his home when he was 5 days old. For the past 2.5 years, when he was sick, where were you? When he learned to walk and talk, where were you? When it was his birthday, where were you?" With every question, Kevin's face grew paler. "You were busy drinking, gambling, flirting with your intern," I continued. "Now you remember you're a father? It's too late. But I had to work. To provide," he mumbled weakly. "Provide?" I laughed. "Have you given a single dollar of child support? You didn't provide for your family. You drove it into debt. You even tried to sell our home to pay off your gambling losses. You can't be this shameless, Kevin." "He is still my blood," Carol screeched, scrambling up from the floor. "Amanda, don't think you can do whatever you want just because you found some rich guy. That boy has my son's blood in him. You want to take him? Not a chance. You want a divorce? Fine, leave the boy." She lunged for Leo. Daniel moved like lightning, blocking her path and grabbing her wrist. "Ma'am," he said, his voice like ice. "Attempted kidnapping is a felony." He then turned to Kevin. "And there's something else you two should see." I retrieved the file from my desk and opened it to a specific page, holding it up for Kevin to see. "Read the name." Kevin squinted, his pupils dilated in shock. Leo. Hayes, he whispered, as if he'd seen a ghost. Who gave you the right? He shrieked. He's my son. Why does he have your name? Why? I said calmly. Because for 2.5 years you were an absent father, because you abandoned your family. The law, Kevin, is based on evidence. Every day you were gone was another reason for me to legally give him my name. He is Leo Hayes now. My son. He has no connection to you or your family. You monster! Kevin completely broke. All his plans, all his delusions, shattered in an instant. He thought he could just snap his fingers, and I would come running back. Instead, I had taken the one thing he believed was irrevocably his son, his legacy. I don't believe you. I'll sue you. I'll fight for custody. I'll ruin you, he screamed. Go ahead, I said, tossing the thick stack of printed evidence at his feet. In there, you'll find your text messages, your gambling debts, 2.5 years of bank statements showing no child support, and your mother's fraudulent medical claims. Go ahead and sue, Kevin. Let's see if the judge gives you custody or a prison sentence. I added one last thing. Oh, and by the way, since my name is on the deed, you can't sell the condo. In fact, as the party at fault, I'm filing to have your assets frozen and the property liquidated to pay me what I'm owed. You won't just walk away with nothing. You'll be paying me back for the last 2.5 years. Kevin stared at the evidence scattered on the floor. His legs gave out, and he collapsed into a heap. He was finished. He knew he was utterly, completely finished. Get out, I said, turning my back on the pathetic pair. And if you ever show your faces here again, I promise you, I will make your lives even more miserable than they already are. Daniel opened the door. Carol, finally grasping the reality of the situation, let out a mournful wail and dragged her broken son out of my home. As the door clicked shut, the world was finally quiet. I leaned against Daniel, listening to the steady beat of his heart, and the tears I had held back for so long finally fell. Not tears of sadness, but of relief. The long war was finally over, and I had won. The court's decision was swift. My evidence was so overwhelming that it was an open and shut case. Kevin couldn't even afford a lawyer. He sat in court, head bowed, as each piece of his failure was laid bare. The verdict was exactly as Miss Davis had predicted. The divorce was granted. I was awarded sole physical and legal custody of our son. Kevin was ordered to pay $800 a month in child support. The condo was to be sold, with over 60% of the proceeds awarded to me as my share of the equity and punitive damages for his misconduct. The day I received the final decree, the sun was shining. I walked out of the courthouse and took a deep, clean breath of freedom. I heard from old neighbors that when the foreclosure notice was posted on the condo door, Carol had a real heart attack. This time, it wasn't an act. Kevin, to pay her medical bills, sold his car and borrowed money from every relative he had. Tiffany, the intern, took his last few dollars and disappeared. Today, Kevin has no home, no wife, no son, and is drowning in debt. He lost his job and now delivers for DoorDash to support his bedridden mother. Sometimes, people see him on the street, staring blankly at women who look vaguely like me. Some might say I was too cruel, but I know that if I hadn't been, the one struggling in that pit of despair would be me. 3 months later, at Leo's 3rd birthday party, I stood on a small stage, wearing a stunning red dress, with Daniel's arm around me. Below us were my parents, my friends, and the business partners who had supported me. Thank you all for coming, I said, raising my glass. These past 3 years have been a journey. I've known despair, but I never gave up, because I believe that no path in life is wasted. Every step counts. I looked down at my son, happily eating a piece of cake, his face a picture of pure joy. Some people ask why I was so unforgiving, why I didn't give my son a complete family. I did it because I know that a complete family full of conflict and coldness is far worse than a loving home that might look different. Sometimes, the greatest respect you can show for life is knowing when to cut your losses. A toast, I said, my voice clear and strong, to ourselves and to the future. I drank the champagne. It fizzed and burned, then settled into a warm glow that spread through my entire body. Later that night, Daniel was driving us home. As we passed a familiar street, I saw a figure in a yellow delivery jacket, sitting on a curb, hunched over and eating a sad-looking sandwich. It was Kevin. He looked 10 years older. His back stooped, his eyes hollow. The car sped past without slowing. I pulled my gaze away and took Daniel's hand, and my son's small hand in my other. In the rear-view mirror, Kevin's figure grew smaller and smaller, until it vanished completely. Just like that painful chapter of my past, it was finally, irrevocably, behind me. The road ahead was long, but this time, I had light, I had love, and I had direction. I am Amanda Hayes, and my life has just begun.